I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. This is my third virtual town hall since I took office. I'm Josh Becker, and I'm honored to represent California's 13th Senate District. This past year has been incredibly difficult for all of us. We've lost loved ones, we've lost jobs, our community has suffered. But at the same time, we've also risen to the occasion. Individuals and organizations from all across the peninsula have stepped up. In doing so, they reminded us what it truly means to be a community. Some well-known groups led the way by massively expanding their efforts during the crisis, like Samaritan House, Second Harvest Food Bank of Silicon Valley, Coastside Hope, prepared and distributed literally millions of meals and bags of grocery for families in need. Sunnyvale Community Services expanded all kinds of assistance, including financial assistance for rent and medical expenses. Samaritan House also expanded homelessness and shelter programs, as did Pastor Paul Baines and his dedicated team at Project We Hope. And there's Job Train, which continue to provide classes, coaching, assistance to help community members find and secure rewarding jobs. Across San Mateo and Santa Clara counties, hundreds of existing and new organizations stepped up. Each is made up of tireless volunteers and staff dedicated to service. And I'm reminded every day, it's all about service. And you can start small in your community. Tutor, volunteer at a food bank, serve on a food drive. And so many of you have and continue to do so. I'm so grateful for your service and want to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you to everyone working to help those in need, to lessen the suffering and end the pandemic. The purpose of this town hall is to celebrate and lift up some of those who have stepped up during this time. We will talk about organizations that you sent to me and my team, and my co-hosts and I will also speak with 4 organizations from different parts of the district. After that, we'll hear from a dynamic group of council members and learn about the Hometown Heroes series that they started to recognize some members of our community. First, I'm honored to have Nicole Taylor from the Silicon Valley Community Foundation as my co-host. Nicole brings decades of experience working in public service to her current role. Over the course of her career, she's helped run numerous foundations and has served in high-level positions at Stanford and Arizona State University, where she was Deputy Vice President and Dean of Students. Nicole is a true champion for our community. She returned to the Bay Area in late 2018 to serve as the President and CEO of the Silicon Valley Community Foundation. The foundation is a leading promoter and supporter of finding impactful philanthropic solutions to challenging problems. One of my goals is to bring different community groups together and bring the philanthropic community, the business community, and policymakers together to tackle some of the big problems we have in the Bay Area. Because we are more effective when we work together. And the Community Foundation is a big part of that. So thank you, Nicole, for being here tonight. Could you please tell us a little bit more about some of the great work the Community Foundation has been doing?
Oh, thank you so much, Senator Becker, for having me here. I'm excited to be here with everyone this evening and honor and celebrate the COVID community champions of Senate District 13. So last year was so hard for so many of us. We faced a global pandemic that upended all of our lives. The murder of George Floyd ignited a wave of racial justice movements across the country, indeed the world. And then wildfires devastated our state and displaced thousands of families. And of course, it was the year of an unprecedented election season and the census count, which we are already learning will have serious implication on our state's representation in Congress. And then there's the redistricting efforts and implications that will hold on our communities. So much has been at stake. Since 2020, the cascading crises have been relentless. But so has been our resolve to help our neighbors in need. So as a community foundation, as this community's foundation, we know intimately the strengths and the needs of our local communities. We work to translate this knowledge into information and strategies that influence and inspire our donors and partners to take action and solve our region's toughest challenges. At the heart of our work is the pursuit of equity and prioritizing support to those who face greater challenges because of systemic injustices. So that when disasters strike, as they did over and over in 2020, we leverage our deep community roots and relationships to quickly round up partners, just as Senator Becker said, partners. We pool capital and deploy the resources to those most in need. Last year, when the first cases of COVID began appearing in the Bay Area, we knew that the pandemic would have devastating effects on our communities. We just didn't know how much at the time. So we immediately launched 7 COVID response funds, and with help from our donors and others in philanthropy, business community, government, and community partners, we raised $64 million. And one of those funds was our COVID Regional Response Fund, which provided rental assistance, food, and help with other basic needs to residents of the Bay Area who are facing the most challenges. And to quickly reach those most in need, the Community Foundation designated lead agencies from each county with the help of our sister community foundations across the Bay Area. And these lead agencies had the capacity to respond to crises and the ability to deploy funds quickly into their communities. In San Mateo County, our lead agency partnered with Samaritan House. And thanks to the help of our lead agencies, partners like Samaritan House, we were able to support nearly 700,000 individuals and families across the 10-county Bay Area region. Other local nonprofit organizations played equally as vital roles in supporting our communities through this crisis. Their operations were impacted heavily due to the pandemic, and many faced harrowing obstacles like event and program cancellations, decreased volunteer support, slashed revenue, all while dealing with increased demand for their services. But they prevailed. When the stakes were at their highest, these organizations were there for our communities, helping thousands of families and individuals overcome the challenges of the pandemic. Tonight, we'll hear from 4 of those community champions and their great work. So Senator Becker, back over to you as he'll introduce to all of us the first of our COVID community champions.
Thank you. We are so lucky to have you back in our community and so lucky to have you running such an important organization in our community right now. So, and we're very lucky to have you tonight as well. So thank you again.
Thanks.
So many of the organizations that we'll talk tonight have actually received grants or partnered with the Community Foundation. And those are groups, and again, many of these are ones that you sent into us in anticipation of this event. These are groups like the Day Worker Center of Mountain View, which is a housing justice organization. During COVID, they began providing food and created a roving outreach program to meet the most underserved where they live. Anamanatangi, Polynesian Voices, is another community-based organization that expanded their efforts during the pandemic. It's a trusted resource for the Pacific Islander community in need of financial assistance or counseling. During the pandemic, they also worked to lift our spirits with socially distanced cultural arts performances and very detailed, I know, hands-on work with the community that was struggling during this time. Similarly, the Mountain View Buddhist Temple has responded to their community by providing assistance while at the same time continue to teach in a safe and inclusive environment. Throughout the pandemic, the greatest suffering has often been felt by communities that were already facing hardships. The community-based organizations serving these populations rose to the occasion and expanded their outreach and services to meet the needs they saw. For example, a Change South San Francisco has continued to advocate for community empowerment while also stepping up to deliver food boxes to those in need. Another such organization is Ayudando Latinos a Sonar, or ALAS, which has grown from a cultural arts program to a critical services provider and advocate for social justice. We are very lucky to be joined tonight by ALAS's founder and executive director, Dr. Belinda Hernandez Arriaga. Belinda is a licensed clinical social worker who holds a PhD in education and is on the faculty of USF. In 2011, she founded ALAS, an organization focused on the needs of the Latinx community in the Half Moon Bay area. In response to the COVID-19 crisis, Belinda and the ALAS staff stepped up and expanded their efforts to distribute PPE, start a food pantry, and many others. Dr. Arriaga, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Senator Becker. Thank you so much, Nicole, for your beautiful introduction and for all Silicon Valley Foundation is doing and for you to lead the way. And we really appreciate having you, Senator Becker, leading our communities forward, especially during this difficult time.
Well, thank you. So tell us about what drove ALAS's organization, evolution from more of a cultural arts organization, which it still does, into a service provider, advocate, and how has that evolution continued over the past year and a half to address the needs during the pandemic?
Yeah, thank you for that great question. ALAS actually has been known for its cultural arts, but one of the things that I'm always emphasizing is that we're using the cultural arts as a platform of resistance, as a platform of healing, and as a platform of raising our identity and awareness in the community. So in some ways, it always seems that it's an arts program at its core, but in many ways, it's wrapped around community, social justice, advocacy, and with the arts to say, here we are, estamos presentes. And so with having said that, my work as a clinician in mental health was really to elevate the Latino community and to elevate our voices. And so with the ongoing crisis that we've been facing in our country and with COVID, it really put us out directly into the field. Like while other folks were being able to shelter in place, for our community, we really needed to go directly to them. We needed to go to the farm workers. Right. We needed to go to the fields themselves, to the children, and really be present and on the ground and bring the food to the community. So we really catapulted to another level of crisis responders with the wildfires, also with COVID, with the economic relief, and with seeing our community hurting and wanting to respond. So we were able to mobilize with what I'm very proud to say is our own community leaders of parents that have been part of our program, our own community members, our own farm workers, our own mothers, fathers, youth that took on the activism, that took on volunteering at the food pantry, that took on delivering food to the community, that helped ran alongside our team to say, how do we respond to the very people that also needed the services? And that's what we really believe that is so critical about ALAS is that it's made up by the community for the community. And through the funding that we were able to receive, it really gave us wings, thanks to Silicon Valley Foundation and others. It gave us wings to be able to do this work at such a critical time and grow our programming.
Well, thanks for that. And you'd be happy to know we didn't have a chance to discuss, but we honored farm workers today on the floor of the state Senate in a formal recognition of a day, and just heard some tremendous stories of just the impact and some of the sacrifices, honestly, that farm workers make on a daily basis, on a regular basis, working in weather and all kinds of conditions, but also especially how they've been hard hit by this pandemic. So I want to thank you for your services. And maybe you could chat for, just tell us a little bit about that. What are some of the specific difficulties the Latino community has had in accessing services or assistance programs?
Right. And you might want to add what happened in the fires with that too.
Sure.
Because I know you did so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that this has been a time where Latino community has really been the backbone of, our Half and Bay Coastside community in many different ways, especially as essential workers and farm workers. And across the nation, we've seen how COVID has really impacted the Latino community. And so I think having access to be able to get these services is so critical. And on the coast side, we have, not as many programs there for sure. ALAS is the only Latino nonprofit that was driven by Latinos in terms of our board and who we serve specifically. And so I think we really saw how the calls just tripled coming in, every day of the help that was needed, the resources that were needed, and having access, having opportunities to come out and get the services when many lived in closed quarters, when many lived in shared housing. When we talked to the farm workers, they said, we can't take a day off. Like our life is dependent on this and the community is depending on us. So it meant us literally going to them. And I think in many ways there was, places that were closed because they needed to be to protect the community. But in other ways, we had to find resources to get to them. And so we started the food pantry. We started driving by food to families to their homes 2 times a week. In addition to the food pantry, we got economic relief to them because so many of them were hard hit by not having jobs and not being able to qualify for some of the services that came through, for the relief. Many didn't qualify for, and many whose voices, frankly, were not really heard in the processes of housing and rental relief and the stimulus. So I think it really did come down to our organizations like ourselves, Coastside Hope, and others that said, hey, we're here to make a difference. Thanks again to folks like yourself that were really aligning with us and saying, we're here. And to the many community members that also donated and really stepped up. I can't say enough how beautiful and powerful it was to see and to still see the outpour of love that folks had to say, we're here to help our neighbor, our friends, our community members, our farm workers, essential workers. And that is what gave us the ability to do the work that we did together with all of you.
Yeah, I'll never forget showing up at your holiday food drive, and Jackie Spear had her, Santa hat on, and she and Brian were among the last to leave, doing cleanup, and it was really tremendous. And as Nicole said, during the wildfires, you stepped up, and I remember dropping food off during that time. And it's a good point. During the pandemic, we had shortages of paper, shortages of lots of things, but we did not have shortages of food because the farm workers kept working. And people don't always realize that we have farm workers in our community, but we do. We have a lot of farm workers on the coast. And thank you for your efforts there. Last question. Can you tell us, because you mentioned as your background as a mental health clinician, can you tell us about your mental health services and how important have your mental health services been for the community this past year?
Absolutely. I love talking about this because I'm really trying to put out the narrative that I think there's a lot of discussion about how there's a barrier to mental health for Latino families, Latino individuals, Latino seniors. But you know what? We've seen the opposite at ALAS. And I am starting to rethink about why that it's a barrier. And I'm starting to learn that I believe mental health is a barrier for Latino community because of limited access and because of cost and because of insurance. So at ALAS, we have made, thanks to, again, the donations, the funding, free mental health services. You come in the door, there's no questions asked, and the pipeline is wide open. So you call, you make an appointment, and we get you seen and we start working with you. However, I will say that as a result of that process, we have had an outpouring of calls coming in, and now we have a wait list. We actually need more mental health clinicians. Unfortunately, we're not able to meet the demand, but I think that it speaks to a bigger conversation that we should all be having in the communities of how do we open the pipeline to mental health services that reduces all the paperwork that, and the barriers to access that comes into play. We also have a very culturally sensitive and culturally relevant mental health practice with cultural sensory implications that we do. Our play therapy is culturally centered. We go to do home visits in our sessions as well when possible. We go to the fields and do visits. So we're really a grassroots, hands-on, like mental health coming to you in what ways that are needed, but rethinking mental health, that how does it fit for our communities? And getting out of the chair, really getting out from that chair and going to the people. The other thing that I want to say is that, sorry for the background noise, but is that we have seen that there's a lot of grief happening right now. And that has been one of the top symptoms that we've been seeing is grieving, the loss of individuals, family members, folks that didn't get to go and say goodbye to their loved ones in Mexico or here, folks that lost their jobs, that didn't get to say goodbye to their colleagues and got displaced. There's just a lot of grief. So we are starting to do grief groups to really highlight the isolation, the depression, and the loss that people are feeling. And that has been really important. And I think moving forward for COVID and beyond, we really need to think about how we're addressing grief in our communities. Even as Nicole shared in the beginning with George Floyd, with everything that has been happening, there's grief of what we're living through, of seeing the pandemic, but also the racial inequities, the racial divide, and that's a grief. And it's something that we're having to address in our youth and with ourselves as well, to think about how do we begin to really heal collectively. And so that's part of our mental health, and I think we need to name that as well.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. That's been, one of the critical issues, some of that even before the pandemic, but certainly the pandemic has amplified it in a huge way.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Belinda, very much for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to Nicole to talk about our next live guest.
Yes, terrific. And I'm actually going to pick up on the theme that Dr. Arriaga just ended with, which is health and mental health. There's so many fantastic organizations that work to keep us and our neighbors healthy throughout the pandemic. And Senator Becker's constituents wrote in to express their gratitude for organizations like Ravenswood Family Health Center, Bellhaven Action, Latinx Gem Club, Casa Circulo, Menlo Park Fire District, and North Fair Oaks Community Council. All of these groups and more have been critical in getting people vaccinated, which, as we all know, is key to ending this pandemic. And while we were all battling the physical health crisis, as Belinda talked about, we were also coping with unimaginable levels of mental health challenges. We were stuck inside our homes, unable to see our friends, families, and loved ones. And when we were outside of our homes, we were limited by where we could actually go while trying to stay safe. Fortunately, a number of organizations responded and recognized this need and tried to help. And we're going to hear from one of those groups today, Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, or MidPen. We're joined here by the General Manager of MidPen, Ana Maria Ruiz. Ana has a master's degree in urban planning, and stewarding public lands and open spaces has been her lifelong passion. She began her career with MidPen as a planning technician in 1998, and over the past 2 decades, she's taken on a variety of leadership roles and is now guiding the successful implementation of MidPen's vision plan. Welcome, Ana. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Very nice to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation, and very nice to connect with you, Senator Becker and Nicole, and to really talk about challenges and breakthroughs across our communities.
Absolutely. And you've been there leading, so thank you for your work. Throughout the pandemic, can you tell us, getting outdoors was so important to so many people, and how did MidPen navigate the challenges posed by COVID-19?
Indeed, getting outdoors and connecting with nature has been essential throughout the pandemic for so many residents. Outdoor natural spaces have provided a safe place for people to take a much needed respite from sheltering at home, to decompress, find comfort, and gain hope through the changing seasons, to remember that things do change. I've also come to hear from one of our local Bay Area public health officials who believes that park and open spaces not only provided a safe place to decompress, parks and open spaces actually helped save lives this past year, realizing that these outdoor spaces gave people a safe outlet that reduced the frequency of otherwise gathering in indoor spaces where the rate of transmission is at the greatest. And something that I've come to really understand is that these open spaces not only support the mental and emotional health of those who visit these areas, the benefits are farther reaching, cascading to family members that are part of the household, children, partners, spouses, and others. In stressful and high anxiety times, people who are able to ground themselves and recharge in nature have the tools to then be able to present the best version of themselves to the people they love. So in a sense, really the benefits really ripple across the larger community.
Yeah.
And MidPen has worked so tirelessly throughout the pandemic to keep our preserves and our staff and the public safe. And the unexpected high influx of visitation, which really skyrocketed to over 200% across our 24 publicly open space preserves, really showed us how essential these public spaces are. And we've been working closely with all of our partners, with local jurisdictions, with the county public health departments and state health departments to ensure that we stay up to date with all the safety protocols. And it's really paid off. It's helped us keep our preserves open during a really high public need.
That's fantastic. I have another question for you. What types of things does Mid-Penn do to try to promote equitable access to the outdoors? We know oftentimes communities of color or immigrant communities and undocumented neighbors, how have you made access, really promoted equitable access?
Equity and inclusion are extremely important. And COVID-19 has shown us that there's a disproportionate impact to our lower income communities and communities that have higher proportions of essential workers and frontline workers who cannot otherwise work remotely from home. And certainly the hard work that our staff have done to follow the often changing county and state health orders to keep the preserves and open and safe and accessible was the first key step. And we've also worked with a coalition Together Bay Area with our local public agencies and nonprofits to get the word out on how to recreate safely and responsibly with public service announcements on local television and radio channels, through social media, using our own website, and through a newly created regional website, bayareaoutdoors.org, where you can get all sorts of great information about trail access throughout this region. In addition, we have continued to work on expanding public access across our preserves. Last summer, we opened a new segment of the San Francisco Bay Trail at our Ravenswood Open Space Preserve in East Palo Alto. The small but mighty 0.6-mile segment that we added has opened up 80 miles of continuous Bay Trail for communities from Menlo Park to Santa Clara and even across the East Bay through the Dumbarton Bike Path. And in this community, East Palo Alto, it's been an incredible asset, providing a much needed park and open space connection for those residents. And we've continued to also provide virtual experiences online to allow people to connect from home and to learn more about their natural resources and the many special status species that are part of our home here. And for more information, we welcome people to come out to www.openspace.org to hear about nature, hear about events and activities, and about how to connect. And there's so many opportunities to learn about mountain lions, badgers, wildflowers. And we have many, many partnerships with groups like Latino Outdoors, Bay Area older adults, on how to hike and provide virtual and on-site hike tours, and also with the Student Conservation Association, bringing the youth in to engage in activities with us, and the local Conservation Corps that provides both job training opportunities and really meaningful opportunities for people to, for young adults to take on many activities and projects that are critical to the preserves and to the resources.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for all that you have been doing to keep these spaces accessible and available to all of us here in the region. Please keep up the great work, and thank you for taking the time to talk to our community this evening. I didn't know if you had any last words before we shift back to Senator, but thanks so much, Anna, for all that you're doing.
Thank you. And I'll just end by expressing deep appreciation of the public's continued support for preserving our vital resources that not only provide great spaces for us to connect with nature, but they also provide great services like clean air, clean water, groundwater recharge, flood protection, carbon sequestration, and so many other services. And we invite everyone to come on to Mid-Penn and learn more about the work we do, the resources we protect. And, there's always something new to learn and discover here within our local open space preserves.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks to your entire team. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Back to you, Senator.
Sure. And thank you, Anna, too. Yeah, it's certainly been an incredible just respite from the pandemic for my wife and I to go on hikes. I didn't go as many as she would like me to go on, but to go on hikes throughout this beautiful area. And it's
pretty incredible. And what a resource. What an incredible resource.
Yeah. I feel better just listening and to Anna and seeing her background made me feel better.
Yeah.
We have a nice background here.
I know. It looks like you borrowed it from her.
The preserve. Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. Well, I like to, so during the pandemic, as we mentioned, there were a lot of existing organizations that stepped up, but also many new initiatives were created specifically. Yeah. And I'm sure that you all saw them all because they all came to you for funding. But many were, to create specifically to help people during this time. A couple examples: San Mateo County Strong Fund was started with $3 million in emergency seed funding by the Board of Supervisors in San Mateo County and in partnership with the Community Foundation. And thanks to generosity of community members, it raised over $6 million from almost 1,400 donors and providing financial relief to families, small businesses, nonprofits, and childcare agencies that were able to remain open thanks to that help.
Yes.
Yeah. And under the leadership of Roseanne Faust, the business community received a helping hand from SAMCETA, which some people may know, the San Mateo County Economic Development Association. And Roseanne and her team, in partnership with Don Cecil, kicked into gear. I know they called me, and they created a COVID crisis response action plan. Most recently, they launched the Restaurant, Brewer, and Winery Grant Program. So far, raised $3.5 million that has been awarded in 350 grants to at $10,000 each. So,
really that was critical. Really critical.
Yeah, and I want to note here actually that my office continues to work to help small businesses, renters, others to access the state programs that we pass at the state level. We've realized they're not always intuitive. They're not always intuitive. So we are here as a resource to help out. But I do want to take that time to just thank people in the business community that stepped up. I was at a clinic recently at Facebook where they donated space for a vaccine clinic.
Yeah.
Microsoft and LinkedIn donated space to El Camino Hospital. I was there. And I know Facebook, for example, did $5.5 million in food support in the community.
Yeah, the companies really did, small and large. I mean, everybody really did step up this past year. It was really great to see.
Yeah, amazing. But of course, one of the other biggest disruptions I can say as a parent of two teenagers was disruption to educating our kids. And distance learning and social isolation suddenly kind of became the norm. And while our educators were figuring out how to adopt to distance learning while also educating their own kids and dealing with so much, there were some other organizations that also stepped up to fill some of the gaps. So I want to mention a few of those, including Healthy Cities Tutoring, which committed themselves to serving Redwood City and San Carlos students via remote one-on-one tutoring. And I'm going to try to make sure my kids do some tutoring this summer, where we'll have a lot of really intensive summer programs to get kids back up to speed. And Street Code, who I'm sure you know well, Day, amazing, approached me early on. He wanted to raise, they identified 2,500 kids who did not have laptops, who needed them in the community, and raised money to get laptops to those kids while also continuing their online taking their, coding classes and other things they do with Roblox and others, taking them online. Just a couple of things before I introduce our next live guest. So in addition to that, many of us wanted us to thank our childcare workers and teachers that have gone above and beyond. And people wrote in about First Five that help parents and caregivers navigate these uncertain times. Happy Hall Childcare in Millbrae and San Bruno, providing childcare to children of essential workers. And my friend Lisa Moody and Baby Basics of the Peninsula sought to help in other ways. They gave away thousands of diapers and coordinated drive-through giveaways, which I can tell you were very fun to participate in.
That's great. Yeah, without those workers, the rest of the businesses, we can't survive without those workers.
Yeah, exactly. Without the essential workers that were on the front lines.
Yeah.
And lastly, in South San Francisco, Artists on Wheels, someone wrote about supporting schools and young people by hosting virtual paint nights at operating camps and all those, everything that everyone did was just helped us all get through this. I want to welcome our next live guest. There's another group that served their community by providing for essential needs. Was the First of the Month campaign. And I know, Nicole, you also know a lot about this one as well.
Yes.
And I'm excited that one of the founders of this initiative is here to speak with us tonight. Sarai Espinosa Salamanca is a dynamic and innovative entrepreneur. She sought to help others by creating Dreamers Roadmap to help undocumented immigrants find scholarships for college. And then during the pandemic, she helped launch Supplies for Farm Workers, another effort that was not just regional. I know she was driving up to all parts of the state for that. But I'd like to welcome Sarai today, if we can get her on the screen as well. This is one of the fun parts of the pandemic. We got to know each other better. And I was wondering if you could tell us about the origins of the First of the Month campaign.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Senator Becker and Nicole, for creating this space and allowing us to share. It's kind of how it was said in I think in the works of all of this, right? Like, I wish we just had endless hours so that we can have everybody speak. So just thank you to everyone mentioned. Thank you to the ones not mentioned. Thank you to the ones on here at this event for everything that y'all did. I think it really does come down to a collective effort to really move our communities and state forward. So just thank you, sending all of my love and appreciation to all of you out there. So First of the Month was so crazy. As we all know, right? Very early last year, things started to shut down. Places started to really get very restrictive. And being that I had been doing the work at Dreamers Roadmap for about 6 years with the undocumented communities in the past 10 years, and me, myself, being undocumented for a really, really long time, I knew the effects. I kind of foresaw the effects of what a pandemic like this could bring to our community. So right away when this came about, I started having internal conversations with my friends of locally here, like, this is going to be really bad for everyone, but the undocumented community, it's just kind of this workforce that's oftentimes invisible and doesn't benefit from any funding that comes from the state or federal. So what we did is we really took it into our own hands. We took matters into our own hands and started having conversations. I kind of drafted up a survey on Google Docs and sent it out to the families that I was currently working with to really identify and really hone in all of our energies to the one thing that was going to affect them the most. And not surprised, it was rent. Rent was the number one thing that these communities were really afraid of not being able to pay, right? Because these were most of the childcare workers, the restaurant workers, the house cleaners, and they lost their work from one day to the next with no savings, most of them working paycheck to paycheck. So then that became our focal point. We're going to fundraise for a rent campaign. The conversation started with the folks at Cafeteria. We very quickly started asking around, like, who else can come join us and has the infrastructure to deliver these checks. Then we connected with Live in Peace. And then Gina, who's a dear friend, connected us with whom became our campaign manager, Howard Cushlin. And that just became, that became our dynamic trio. I don't know what you say when it's four, but we just all became this like amazing team that you don't very often see in the nonprofit space. It's very competitive, lots of red tape and stuff. But for this, I think that was the beauty of this project, that we really kind of set all of those things behind us and focused on our collective community and effort and created First of the Month and what we started calling trust-based philanthropy. Right? We were very quick to move the money. As soon as it came in like hours, we can write a check to a family within our network that we knew was impacted. That was, I personally, at least for me, I had never seen something been done this fast before. And it was because every single person at this table was very well prepared, knew the community. We had the infrastructure to do this as fast as the community needed it.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are you still working? Are you still going? I mean, are you still in the heat of it? right now?
I mean, we're in the heat of it. We're all like, again, 3 different organizations. Each organization, you know, as things kept moving on, started kind of focusing in different areas. Live in Peace does a phenomenal job with their students, and the pods started to happen. So they started doing that. Then we went into the Supplies for Farm Workers campaign. But I mean, we're still very close with one another. It's still a need. We still have some funding left over. So families, we're at a point where like, we're now helping families who had a COVID death in their family, you know? And again, their families were funded for about 3 to 8 months. We ended up raising $2.4 million. Again, and it was really just grassroots, word of mouth. It eventually scaled to like bigger philanthropic folks locally that supported. But I just think that was crazy because in the beginning when I told my team, let's raise $1 million, she's like, you're crazy. I'm like, no, but it's totally doable. Like we could totally do this.
Right.
And when we reached $1 million in like 4 weeks, I'm like, you guys, you see, like we did it. So then, yeah.
And then you're like, this is not enough. We need to keep going.
Not enough. And I mean, even the 2.4 that we raised is not enough, you know, but I think the beauty again, and the, I think satisfaction for me was that after we started doing this campaign, it was really refreshing to see other initiatives, with the similar focus point of undocumented communities of color, mostly impacted, be created. So that was beautiful to see. And again, I mean, for me, it's been such an honor to do this and have, if you will, created this new way of working with one another. When at the end of the day, you know, we're all trying to support the same families thrive and bridge this kind of equity and success for our community and our children. So it was beautiful to do this work.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that, I mean, each effort I think inspired other efforts. You know, people read about, I mean, I heard first of the month, I think that's amazing. And I don't think you actually got enough publicity. I mean, San Francisco Chronicle, I know, did a nice story, but it's just like, wow, we got to, you know, that's probably why we're doing this, you know, lift up some of these stories that was just with Cafania and Live in Peace, and then all came together is really amazing. So, so thank you for joining us. I'm gonna, unless you have any final comments, I will turn it over to Nicole to talk about our next live guest.
Yes, thank you, Sarahi. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So food insecurity, right? That has been the focus of so much of what the need has been. And it just unraveled for so many of our neighbors here in the region. Hundreds of thousands of Bay Area residents lost their jobs or exhausted their savings and had serious challenges with food insecurity. Senator, you mentioned Second Harvest of Silicon Valley earlier. They reported that the number of people they served every month during the pandemic doubled to over 500,000 people a month. Fortunately, so many community members came together to ensure that our neighbors were able to put food on their tables. Groups like Samaritan House, Called Primrose Food Pantry, Second Harvest Food Bank. They all expanded their ongoing efforts to stock food pantries and coordinate large-scale food distribution events. Other organizations work to help keep local restaurants open, like you mentioned. Frontline Foods kept restaurants in business by providing meals to frontline workers. Appetite for Good in Mountain View collected funds to purchase restaurant meal vouchers and then gave those vouchers to community members in need. Millicent Grant and her daughter Bridget have worked tirelessly to keep the East Palo Alto Senior Center open, where they distribute food to the community every single Thursday. They've hosted special events for Thanksgiving and Christmas and the Lunar New Year. Another group that stepped up to provide meals and food is the San Mateo Central Labor Council. In partnership with Second Harvest, they conducted massive food distribution efforts twice a month, helping hundreds of families each time they did it. And so we're now going to be joined by 2 amazing women from the Labor Council, Julie Lind, who's Executive Secretary and Treasurer, and Raina Lehman, Director of Community Services. And they are here to talk about their efforts to support workers throughout the region. Welcome to Julie and Raina. Thank you both for being with us here today. So would love for you to talk about how Labor Council's service model had to change to address the needs of the workers and their families during the pandemic. So either one of you or both, please let us know how did you have to change?
So thank you very much to Senator Becker for having us and Nicole for the warm introduction. We're very grateful to be here, especially given the company that we're all in, those that are on the call and also all of the organizations that you had mentioned. So we're in very fine company. As for the work that the Labor Council did during COVID in response, I will actually defer to Raina to begin because it was a program that she created, which is what led the senator to choosing to honor us amongst these folks, amongst other things that Raina championed as part of our collective COVID response. So I'll let Raina begin, and then I will jump in with additional undertakings by the broader labor community.
Great. Yes, please, Raina.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Senator. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks, all the community partners. There's no way to overstate the hardship that has been heaped on workers and families in San Mateo County. And there's also no way to overstate the magnificent response of all the community partners. San Mateo County steps up. We join together, we step up, and we do what we need to do. Which is sort of what the Labor Council did. We did what we need to do. A lot of our working families in travel and hospitality, clearly one of the industries very hard hit. We were faced with immediate high levels of unemployment. And for a lot of these folks, these are folks who are on the bottom rungs, who are low-wage workers to begin with. So disruptions, big disruptions like this, as we know, for our low-wage families are really, really difficult and hard to handle. So Labor has been a food bank agency forever. We have distributed food in the past for many years to help union members make ends meet during hard times and even during regular times. So there was nothing more natural for us than to say, we've at least got to get food on people's tables. The Machinists Union Hall in Burlingame has a big driveway. The Machinists Union is a very generous union. We said, how can we do this? We laid out a plan. We talked to the food bank, and within about 2 weeks, and after we talked to the police department, because we knew there'd be an awful lot of cars on Rollins Road that are not usually there, we started running 300 cars through. We started serving 300 families, and then we started serving 800 families a month. The biggest piece of this, logistics, we can all appreciate logistics. We've had more than an average of 55 volunteers come to make this happen twice a month. These volunteers are also unemployed union members. These are also folks who were not working, but felt the need to be part of the bigger community, who felt the need, as we all talked about, not to be isolated, not to be sitting at home and being stressed and being hurt, but to get out and do something. I think the biggest piece of everything that we've done is all the unemployed workers themselves who've come to volunteer. Ended it up in just a year alone, we've had close to 7,000 volunteer hours.
Wow.
Which is a really, really remarkable feat. A lot of the folks that come through our food lines are not eligible for any other programs, for any of the state programs or any of the other services. So this is at least one thing that we can do to help our folks as we start to build back, as we start to come back, as industries start to come back, and as we start to be really thoughtful about how we make bad jobs better jobs for our low-wage workers, and how we always have safer workplaces for all our workers. If anything, this disaster has shown us that so many of our workers are vulnerable every day, not just in a pandemic, but face very dangerous working conditions. And we all have the opportunity, I think, to make our workplaces safer workplaces, to look at retraining that is going to give people the skills they need, not just to have low-wage jobs and not just to have minimum wage jobs, but to get better jobs as we move forward with the next steps in our recovery here in San Mateo County.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Right. Livable wage jobs. How about that? Livable wage for this part of the Bay, right? That would be amazing.
That would be helpful on a variety of levels.
Yes.
And so in addition to the twice monthly food distributions under Reina's direction, we also, with the 4 Bay Area Labor Councils, Alameda, Contra Costa, San Francisco, and San Mateo, we were able to distribute over $300,000 in hardship assistance to workers, predominantly those that didn't qualify for any relief from EDD due to either immigration status or to other extenuating circumstances. We were also able to procure and distribute PPE to our frontline folks when proper PPE was a real challenge at the beginning of the pandemic. We were able to successfully lobby in many of our local cities for hazard pay for grocery and pharmacy workers, some of our lowest paid workers with arguably the highest degree of exposure for the most extended period of time. We were also able to advocate successfully for emergency paid sick leave at the county level, for right of recall to have workers who were laid off during COVID be able to go back to the jobs they had instead of allowing employers to hire a whole new crop of folks in the hope of being able to undercut the economy and bring in cheaper workers rather than their trained, better paid workforce that had been sitting on the bench waiting for it to be safe to return. We were able to put together a vaccination event for our frontline workers after successfully advocating to have transportation workers reintegrated as a priority vaccination tier before it went to the completely aged base that it is now. Mm-hmm. And to, back to the comment about livable wages, we were also able to continue to successfully advocate to pick up a couple more cities with a minimum wage that was higher than the states who did this during a pandemic. Wow. East Palo Alto, I know you'll see an East Palo Alto council member later on in this event, as well as Burlingame chose to raise their wage during the pandemic. We were also able to successfully work with some other jurisdictions to ensure that the wage hikes that were at COLA bumps were not rolled back or frozen given the economy. And for things that we'd like to see continue, I think there was...
Next question. What's next? What do you have coming next?
It's hard to think about next because we're still thinking about now. Mm-hmm. But what I'd really like to see continue is the appreciation of our frontline workers, people that were so often unseen, overlooked, these largely lower wage workers, your grocery workers, your pharmacy workers, bus drivers, airport workers, your letter carriers, your sanitation workers, the people that have really kept the economy going, kept life going as we all sat back going, okay, what the heck is next and when is this going to end? So hoping that the community as a whole continues this appreciation and understanding of the vital role that these workers play in the economy. We will also continue to work in partnership with the county. Reina talked about the workforce re-education. We're excited. The county is doing a study of the jobs outlook for San Mateo County so we can figure out where the vacancies are and what skills need to be, or rather how to attain skills that our out of work folks may not already have that they would need to be successful in the jobs that we learn are out there and are going to be sustaining and sustainable, particularly in industries that will be slow to come back up. Entertainment, travel and tourism, hospitality. So trying to figure out how we can get these folks back to work when their pre-COVID career may not really be an option for them for quite some time.
Right. Phenomenal work that you all have done, how you pivoted and were able to respond to the needs of the workers, and what you're continuing to do.
Yeah, if I could chime in. Yeah, it was very fun. Myself and my daughter spent many Thursday at those food drives and saw those lines and lines of cars that you were talking about, Reina, and just so well organized and just so appreciative of you. And everyone would come out each week, more and more people volunteering, to meet the need. And so we appreciate the cameo from Cassidy Ann. And but you also had the one job should be enough behind you earlier. And you know, that kind of summarizes some of what we talked about. One job should be enough. And the appreciation, as you said, for the workers that kept us going. And that's one of the reasons I fought so hard to get vaccines in communities that had been hard hit. And most cases, they were hard hit because those people in those communities were frontline workers. Right. And that's why I've worked so hard to get the vaccines there. And if there's anyone in any of those communities who is still struggling, please let us know. I'd be remiss quickly if I didn't give a shout out to Marie McKenzie and Michelle Dar in East Palo Alto, just working tirelessly every day on testing and then vaccines, just incredible amount. And there's people like them throughout other communities across our area. So thank you to both of you. Really appreciate it.
And one quick shout out, of course, to the Second Harvest Silicon Valley Food Bank.
Absolutely.
For going above and beyond to make sure everybody who could possibly get a box of food in this county.
Yeah, they went above and beyond. Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for what you've done, and thank you for what you're continuing to do. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Did you mention the Second Harvest? I was mentioning Demetrius Paxton, my friend. He did an incredible job there, while also running his sports teams well at the same time. But yeah, I want to thank Julie and Raina and all of our COVID champions. I'd like to mention one other group of leaders before introducing our last group that really shone. And this was, this was reaction to another thing that happened that we mentioned. We saw a huge increase in race-based hate crimes against members of the AAPI population. 3,800 incidents this past year, including many here in the Bay Area. I just had a town hall with my friend Hala Hijazi last night on this topic. But I have been very heartened by support for the API community throughout our district from all kinds of groups. And
a lot of solidarity, which has been really heartening to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And many rallies that I've been to, and many of them organized by young people, right? Ashlyn So, Jason Shan, Amanda Koo, in San Mateo, Foster City, Mountain View. Incredible. These young people, some of us 13 years old, that have organized these rallies with hundreds of people and marches. And we saw the beginning of the pandemic too, with when George Floyd was murdered. We saw young people step up. Alana Stevenson organized one that I was in with hundreds of people in East Palo Alto, very emotional.
We can learn a lot from this next generation coming up. They get it. They get it immediately.
Exactly.
And then they move to action. It's really, really impressive.
Yeah, exactly. We say they're the future, but they're the present.
They're the present. They're the present. I know.
Yeah, that's really been inspiring. I have to say.
Absolutely.
So I want to welcome one of our three really good friends here to talk about this Hometown Heroes program. This really kind of captured my imagination during the pandemic. I'm going to welcome Ray Mueller, who currently serves on the Menlo Park City Council, Lisa Gaucher, who serves on the East Palo Alto City Council, and Alicia Aguirre, who serves on the Redwood City Council. I want to mention, as they come up, today is Alicia's birthday. So I want to say happy birthday to you, and thank you for being here and sharing your birthday with us. Yeah, for giving us that time. That's amazing. So I wanted to first start out, Ray, can you tell us why how this kind of came to be?
Yeah, sure. So as you can tell this evening, hearing all of these stories, it's incredibly inspiring. And at the time, back in August of last year, the pandemic had been going for 5 months, and it started to become increasingly evident that we were going to have this start affecting our holiday season. And I started to get incredibly concerned about what that impact was going to be on people in our community. There are so many who had been diving in for so long, and it seemed like the overwhelming impact then of not being able to be with loved ones and to share community was really going to start to have serious mental health effects. And so I was trying to think, what can we do in order to affect that? Now, one of the things about communities, healthy communities, as you've heard tonight, is that the foundation of a healthy community is compassion. You don't just have a neighbor, you love your neighbor. And when you do that, when you witness that compassion, there's a ripple effect. It inspires hope. but is also the witness of conquering struggle. And that inspires in a person the ability that they want to do the same, that they want to share that. And so the idea was, can we take examples of what's happened in our community where people have given of themselves to build community through compassion and create all of these ripples of hope that hopefully would inspire others, give them hope through the months that were coming ahead as we did this through those months, but also would inspire people to dive in and keep that stamina. And so the idea was to reach out to other council members throughout South San Mateo County and say, why don't we go ahead and work together and identify people in our community who are working hard, just normal, everyday people, and also organizations, but just those inspiring stories of people who have dedicated themselves to compassion in this crisis. And I was very fortunate to have council members like Lisa and Alicia just immediately dive in and embrace it.
Well, that's great. Again, it was inspiring certainly to me. And Alicia, since it's your birthday, do you want to go first? Tell us about some of the hometown heroes that you recognized and would like to recognize tonight.
Yes, thank you. Two come to mind. You know, I'm a professor at Kenyatta College, so I have to start with a student of mine who, besides having his wife having COVID and his whole family having COVID, they, as soon as they got over it and got well, they went out and they were distributing food. They were, they felt like a need to go out and work on this. His name is Mario, and I have such an appreciation for him, what he struggled with and what he ended up saying, now I have to do this and give back. There was another woman in our community. Her name is Catherine Perry, and she ended up working really hard with the Spirit Care Ministry for Seniors and bringing music, hymns, and Bible study to their homes in Redwood City. And then the last one, but really just a pivotal one, I think that you all know about, is our Fair Oaks Community Center, where folks were looking for rental assistance and all kinds of support, and they couldn't get it because they had to go online. And so they set up ways of making sure that, they were able to get them, show them how to get online to get the rental assistance, to show them where to get all of the benefits that were being distributed for some of the folks and for some of the things that they couldn't, like if they weren't able to get stimulus checks and EDD checks, how they were able to give what our county did, which is the funding for the undocumented. So to me, those three organizations are three folks, the two folks in the organizations are the ones that I recommended and stand out for me, which there's so many, many more that we could go on, right? But thank you for allowing me to share what Redwood City has been able to come up with and the great folks that live in our community.
And I remember at the beginning of the pandemic talking to you, and you were doing a course to help other teachers do distance learning better, right? There's an additional duty you took on top of all this.
Correct. Well, now I'm the Zoom guru, and so it helps me in politics. A lot of my colleagues, as we do things in CCAG and others, I'm able to do the breakout groups and do all the great things that I've been able to do as a professor. So it's great how my two professions have come together during this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And you mentioned Fair Oaks, and we talked about it a little earlier about Cecilia Taylor and Bellhaven Action, and there's groups in Mountain View and Sunnyvale and South San Francisco and Daly City that really stepped up throughout our community. And Lisa, I want to turn it over to you. I think you've got a special organization that you were very deeply involved with to give a shout out to.
I do apologize. I have to do another welcome, as all of us do. I'm trying to multitask here. Can Ray go first, and can I come back? I have to do a welcome for a flood and sea level thing. This will take a few minutes, and I'll do that.
Okay, yeah, no problem. That is, people don't appreciate, but our local, when you're on a city council here,
it's
you
multiple.
Get involved. Yeah, you get involved in all these different regional committees and boards, and there's flood control, there's transportation, and there's so many different commitments. So we will definitely let her. She probably thought we'd be done by 7, so we'll let her come back. So Ray, how about you? Who do you want to highlight?
Yeah, there's a couple stories. So one story which was incredibly inspiring to me was that of Maria Tanaka. Maria was a person in our community who would frequent downtown Menlo Park, and she started to talk to employees, frontline workers during the pandemic, and hear stories of how bad they were suffering. And she went on Nextdoor and said, hey, can people help? And she started to organize. And the next thing you know, that organization effort grew into taking over a person's garage who had donated it. And they had all sorts of donations coming in that were being dispersed through Menlo Park and Redwood City and throughout South San Mateo County. And it was all organic via Nextdoor and Facebook and WhatsApp. And so it just blew me away. And then the second person I just blew me away was 88-year-old Lucille Spurlock, who at 88 in the middle of a pandemic made sure that she kept going to food bank every week at Trinity Church and delivering food from 8 to 12 to make sure that people had it. And those are two acts of compassion. And if I was going to say a third, Jesse Cool at Fleece Street, who organized an entire effort around bringing healthy meals to our frontline workers in hospitals, which is just incredible to make sure that they had the nutrition they need to work those crazy hours that they were working in the heat of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So those are just three, but just awesome. And it's been also great to see some of the people you've highlighted here today who also were honored as hometown heroes in their communities.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that was one fun part. And I got to be involved in Frontline Foods. A friend was involved. I said, hey, can you take over the region? I was like, okay, I could for a little bit. And then part of my friend Ashton Eshe to do it. But it was really that same idea. And then Appetite for Good, we highlighted how can we both buy meals to help keep restaurants in business and then deliver them to these frontline workers. In many cases, the cafeterias were closed in these hospitals and healthcare centers and get them meals. So, but that's an incredible story. I know sometimes Nextdoor gets a bad rap as a negative place. And I saw some of those, stories of really positive stories of people helping neighbors. So thank you for sharing those. Well, we have a couple minutes more because we're waiting for Lisa to come back. So Alicia or Ray, any other stories you want to share with us?
There's Lisa.
Okay.
Yeah, you're off the hook. Right?
Okay.
Lisa, you're off the hook. Oh, you're on mute. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. I'm back. Thank you again. Josh, you've already talked about so many of the organizations in East Palo Alto that have had an impact on our community. It is so important you've mentioned Marie and Michelle Dare. Michelle Dare suffered through COVID and still came back, and she's out every day fighting for our community. Mm-hmm. But one of the organizations that I work with on a regular basis is the Boys and Girls Club, and you've had the opportunity to come out and celebrate and help serve. What the Boys and Girls Club has been able to do in our community, they normally would have fed their students that would have gone through the program during this time. And many times they do this because they don't know if they're